Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. And my blog partner, Al Williams, is joining us for this segment. Returning to the show tonight is Mr. Neil Sanders. Neil is an expert on the subject of mind control. Neil is the author of the book, Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, Volumes 1 and 2, which I highly recommend to anyone wanting to know more about this very dark but fascinating topic. With tonight's discussion, we asked Neil to take us through the mind control behind social media. And to kick the conversation off, we asked Neil about the recent story of the Pentagon's involvement in a secret 2012 experiment where the Department of Defense intentionally manipulated Facebook feeds without user awareness to assess people's reactions and moods to the altered feeds. And here is what Neil had to say.
Are you really telling me that Facebook's manipulated? Of course they are. That's what it's there. It's there for advertising and data mining. And it works on a process really of operant conditioning. You're pressing a button to get a reward. We'll go into that in a bit. The thing that struck me about this, immediately I was the same. I was like, oh, well, I bet this will be the Pentagon. I bet this will be the NSA or DARPA or some sort of such agency. And lo and behold, it was the Pentagon. But what struck me yesterday was, by admitting this and saying, yeah, we've done this, they can gauge the response. They can see how angry people are and see if they can get away with it again. I don't think that it's a true revelation of, ha-ha, we've caught Facebook at it at all. I think it's an orchestrated release of material as what would be described as like a shock test to see how people react. And I'll tell you how most people react. Most people react with apathy or a degree of, I told you so. Nobody's going to stop using Facebook because of it, I'll guarantee. In fact, people are on Facebook even more now, sending the story backwards and forwards to each other, going, oh, well, bloody hell, I knew this all along. So, in my mind, I think that, I noticed it came out of Cornell University as well.
Yep.
Right, well, Cornell University was basically where the Human Ecology Fund, Human Ecology Fund was a slush fund to gain funds ultimately for MK Ultra, and obviously MK Ultra is the umbrella term for all the physical and social mind control experiments of the 50s. Now, it is a tenuous link, but Cornell University is one of the universities through which the financing was actually funneled, specifically through a fund called the Human Ecology Fund, and I just thought, that's a bit strange, isn't it? And then basically, I mean, I wonder if these sorts of things. There was a program in the Vietnam War called the Phoenix program, and I'm sure people are aware of it. But the gist of it was psychological shock, basically scaring and terrifying the populace. I mean, in Vietnam, what they were doing was they were actually murdering people and mutilating people, not leaving any sort of calling card, so to speak, but letting everyone know that they did it. And I'm going over it very, very glibly. Just to give you a basic example, they go into a village when all the men are out fighting or not there, and they'd say, right, you're all loyal to the Viet Cong or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill you. So they killed all the women and children. What they do often is they stuff babies inside mothers or children inside the bodies of mothers and stuff like that. One famous thing that they did was they basically used to put a picnic table out in the middle of the street, put knives and forks, dress the table and everything, put all the dead bodies around the table as if they were eating dinner, but remove their heads and have the heads on the plates in front of them facing back at the body, and then just no explanation to this. So people would come back, find this horrific thing. Obviously it would traumatize them, and can you believe they didn't feel much like fighting after that? It completely demoralized them, and was a tactic that was heavily used. And this was employed by, principally, it was William Colby that was actually doing it. He was the head of the CIA at the beginning. And Dave McGowan, fabulous researcher, in his book Program to Kill, he points out that serial killers started using mysteriously similar tactics to the Phoenix protocols, very, very high level mutilations and stuff like that, very, very public displays of bodies and stuff like that, just about the same time that William Colby was coming back to America and the Phoenix program was ending. Now, we discussed briefly before, the whole principle of the Tavistock Institute, which was the main British intelligence military psychological organisation that basically started the Frankfurt School, and basically, all the major players of English mind control came out of that era and around the cream of psychological organization. Basically, every strata of society is organized. Their principal methodology, as devised by Kurt Lewin in the early 30s, was to basically apply shock from an external point and trauma to the populace at large all the time. So this basically bewilders them, it makes them feel hopeless, it puts them in a state whereby they, essentially in a psychological state, you fall into a fight or flight mode, because and therefore you've not really got the time to go through detailed, complicated arguments. You want black and white choices, and you can be easily manipulated. Like when a bomb goes off, it's right. Are you with us or with the terrorists? Well, I'm with you, obviously. That's sort of how this is supposed to work. Now, stuff like this, I wonder, I mean, it's obviously not as extreme as dead bodies and stuff like that, but sometimes the release of certain material, I wonder if it is supposedly to demoralize the populace in a Phoenix-style operation. Like recently we're having a lot of revelations about the late Jimmy Savile and some of the practices, and a lot of it, to be quite honest, it's proof now, or it's more breadth to the investigation, but stuff about him sleeping with dead bodies and stuff like that, we knew about that ages ago. Like, you know, the fact that basically Cyril Smith was linked to intelligence agencies, and 144 complaints were lost when MI5 suddenly took over it, and Elm House being a den of iniquity for paedophiles in England and connected to the Tory party and certain members of higher society, shall we say. That's not new, but this was released in a story the other day, and so sometimes I wonder whether these things are bigger than we expect. And there's obviously the initial sort of reason for it, but my wondering was whether a lot of these things that you see, particularly through social media, are an experiment, are a way of gauging people's responses or directing people. Causing outrage is a brilliant one. I mean, I'll tell you one other one that I strongly suspect to be a psychological operation is the recent photo, the sexy mugshot of Jeremy Meeks, I believe is his name. I've seen statuses like, oh, he could rape me. Like, are you serious? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, for Christ's sake. Like, I don't believe that's organic. I think that was there to cause an argument. I would like to know how that mugshot made it to so many news media outlets simultaneously and went viral. I'm always very suspicious when things go viral, because the most famous viral campaigns, Gangnam Style, Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus videos, they're not viral campaigns, they're clever marketing campaigns that are disguised as viral advertising to make people believe that, because obviously this is the principle of sales. You don't sell anything. The second you're trying to sell anything, you failed. You do the customer a favor because you're a friend of theirs. That's the point. That's the key point of sales. If they know you're trying to sell them something, they'll go, you know what, if I needed this, you wouldn't need to sell this to me. You're going to tell them exactly how and why their life is emptier because they haven't got this product. But it's all right, though, because you're going to do them this favor and introduce it to them. And if you're very, very clever, you do it in such a way where they believe that it was their idea all along. And this is how, say, viral marketing works, is because you find it. You're the person that's found it. It's like, oh, brilliant. I say, you never find everyone's always, oh, I saw this weeks ago. Nobody is ever like, poor, yeah, no, I totally got caught up in the craze. Like, so with this Jeremy Meeks thing, I strongly suspect that it was basically just to see how people would react. If I put up a picture of Myra Hindley and said, whoa, people would rightly say, that's a bit despicable, Neil. She killed all those kids. Like, have you got no self-respect? A bit of perspective, perhaps, Neil. Like, there's a program called Brass Eye that was on in England that did a parody of that. They basically had a pop song dedicated to Myra Hindley, who's by a spoof band called Blouse. It's very funny. Please go and watch it. I don't see really how it's massively different. Now, this is a strange thing because basically, you know, violent people, you know, serial killers and stuff get loads and loads and loads of fan mail all the time. People marry serial killers and stuff like that. There's obviously a degree, you know, we have instincts. Someone who's killed, right, is very powerful. You can understand that. From a psychological, you could understand why people might find that strangely attractive because it's the ultimate power. And obviously, you know, when we're talking on instinctions, that's the person that he's going to protect your offspring more than somebody else. So because he's a strong person, a strong in deep inverted commas there. So I can see it's an easy thing. You could do that easily. Again, I often go back to, I know this isn't real, but it's a program called Cracker, and it was based. It was very, 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 very well written. And in the first episode of this program, loads of women started pretending to be this supposed serial killer's wife. He had amnesia, and they're all coming forward and saying, "Yes, I'm his wife. I'm his wife. I'm his wife." And the psychologist in this explains this is a very bizarre thing. But if you did a soap opera with people who would all been not the characters but the actors were all murderers, you said that basically you'd get the highest ratings ever because there's something dangerous and strange and you want to tame that person. In the same way, it's an extreme example of the bad boy. You know, oh, look at James Dean with his cigarette. Oh, look at Justin Bieber with his tattoo. What's the other guy? Chris Brown. Oh, Chris Brown. Oh, if only I could tame Chris Brown, etc., etc., etc. It's that sort of thing, that danger, that vicarious danger. And so I could see why this particular picture would provoke a response like that. And again, I was just very, very suspicious of it. I don't believe it to be organic. I think it just came out. It simply came out of nowhere, didn't it? So
That attraction, though, Neil, where people have that attraction to serial killers and people who are obviously off kilter, it's like a psychological pathogen. It's very creepy. And so your view is these folks that are attracted to that type of person, let's say a serial killer, you're saying it's a control mechanism. In other words, they're attracted to the fact that this person has power and control over other people. Is that what you're alluding
I'd
to?
say that I would say that they can be. And so what I'm saying is that basically to present somebody that is perhaps a killer, perhaps very violent, certainly a very strong individual in a machismo sense, that would be an ideal candidate for a test. If this was a test, that would be the ideal candidate to evoke this response from a certain percentage of the populace, purely because, bizarrely, that aspect of a personality, although on one level you can say, I understand it's despicable, but there's something strangely arousing and intriguing about that sort of a person. It kind of, it's not dissimilar to again the way that people, you know, people like violence and they watch horror films and stuff like that, and they'll get a vicarious thrill out of it because it's a safe way of experiencing something out of your comfort zone. And this is another thing that actually happens on Facebook. You get, and it's something that I don't particularly like. I find it quite irritating. You find quite a lot of particularly young mothers. Now, some of this, I'm not having a go at this. I'm talking about the psychology of people, but there are certain people that are obsessed with stories about children going missing, paedophiles and such like that, not in a sort of activist way, just in a sort of like, have you seen this is horrifying, this guy should have his testicles cut off, this guy should never get let out of prison, all that sort of blah 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 blah. Now, there is an argument that what this is, again, it's a narcissistic behavior that's encouraged by the medium of Facebook. What it is, it's akin to, it's to say, again, it's like watching a horror film. Nobody will probably admit to this, but basically it's a vicarious thrill. What you're doing is you're imagining, imagine if that happened to me. Oh, that'd be horrible. Oh, horrible and exciting, strangely exciting. Oh, horrible. That's why people watch horror films, to be scared, to think. That's why I sit there and watch these grim Japanese things. God, if I was tied up by that samurai and having my arms chopped off, I wouldn't like that at all. You empathize with it. That is how films work. This is how mediums work. And so people, again, get this vicarious thrill, I believe, out of certain posts on Facebook. When you start to see people's activities on social media, the more you look at it, the more you think that perhaps a lot of this is an experiment, is just a sort of, it strikes me that a lot of it is operant conditioning and very akin to a Skinner box, basically. You know, you put out your tidbit of information, you keep pressing on the like, the dislike button, it gets you a response. You put a post up there, that's like gambling almost, basically.
Right.
Basically, and we talked about this briefly before. Like, social information is vital for people. Like, this is why people are obsessed with celebrities and stuff like that. Celebrities have won in society, so to speak. They're at the top level, the top level of society. We can see this because we're told it every day. We can see how much money they've got and how great their lives are and stuff like that. So it's not unusual or even that silly to examine celebrities, because what you can do is you can glean information about how you can mimic their success. If you can be a little bit like them, if you can get, oh, how did he do that? Well, I'll do that. Okay, brilliant. You know, then you can become a bit like them and perhaps improve your social standing. And this is not unusual in the animal kingdom. People, you know, chimpanzees is the famous example. They'll look at a picture of the alpha male and they'll forego food in exchange for a picture of the alpha male, because the sustenance they'll go without in exchange for the far more useful social information that might improve their chance of survival. If they can see some, oh, I see. Okay, oh, brilliant. Okay, he always goes on that big rock or whatever, so he doesn't get bitten by the ants when he's eating. Well, if I start going on a rock, then I won't. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like Kanye West got into that club and the bouncer complimented him on his shirt. If I wore a shirt like that, people would compliment me on it. You know, that's a silly example, but this is the point. And so Facebook, I believe, works in a similar way. It's a use of click, 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 operant conditioning to see if you get a response. And the thing about operant conditioning is that basically the first couple of times you get a response, it's great. The third time you don't get a response. Now, all logic dictates that you would pack it in at that point, but you don't. You click it twice. And then you click it again, and then you get a response. You go, oh, thank God for that. And that releases a certain amount of endorphins in your brain. And so you've learned then that it's better to keep clicking than to not keep clicking, like the rat in the maze. Sometimes they get electrocuted, sometimes they get a pellet. Bizarrely, they keep clicking on it. So you're going to keep going back to Facebook, keep refreshing it, keep looking in the pages to see if there's anything that you can dive into. And then at that point, you can gamble with your valuable social information. You can put a post up, you can see if you get popular. You could answer somebody's post, you could start a debate. And so, and again, this is where it's very. I would liken Facebook. It's like an electric sewing circle, really. Basically, it's a platform. Again, many studies have shown that it actually breeds narcissism. It's a popularity contest. It's not framed as a popularity contest, but that really that's what it is. It's kind of like a sort of, as I say, an ethereal marketplace where everyone gets up and shouts and sees who can lead the conversation. And that struck me quite recently, that a lot of this is on groupthink. People put up something and then pick sides. So some will argue for it, some will argue against it, and then it's like you go on little raiding parties onto their Facebook page and go, well, you're an idiot, have you read this article? And then they'll come back and post something on your page and stuff like that. It's really strange. You get a lot of people attacking others and doing things and talking in a way that you wouldn't do if you were next to the person, because you've got caught up in that de-individuation of, no, this thing, we're fighting for a cause now, can't you see that what I'm saying is blah, blah, blah. I mean, just go on there, you'll find a fight between some atheists and some Christians, or you'll find an argument between people that think Islam is vile and terrible and they're all terrorists, and people that are sensible. It's easy. Go look now, you'll find these sorts of arguments.
Yep.
As I say, it's a herd mentality. And one thing that's strange is it seems to also encourage something that's called the bystander effect, which is, and this is bizarre, the more people that are present, the more difficult it is to get involved and stop bad behavior. If two people are going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and there's 30 people watching, right? Nobody does anything. It is very unlikely that one person will step forward and do it, because they don't want to go against the crowd. Again, the crowd at that particular time has denoted that in this particular situation, this is going to happen. And so you don't want to be the one that goes against it. And again, all this type of behavior you do see on Facebook. I mean, a lot of it, I think, is because you're behind a screen, and so there's that requisite anonymity. I mean, you could take it further when we're just talking about Twitter, Facebook, really, at the minute. But I mean, Twitter beef. I mean, that's the most ludicrous thing in the world. But people are dying in America. There's like, you know what I mean? You can go on YouTube and find a chap called Rosemo300 who later got killed, fighting someone because he said something on Twitter, and so in response he beat him up and put it on YouTube. And that's just one example that I saw. Yeah, and the only reason I know that is because that guy apparently then got into a fight with the rap of the game. But again, this is the thing. Why do I know that? Why do I care? Right? Okay, I found that out on the internet. Like what? But this is the point. It's flooding you with like useless nonsense information a lot of the time, basically. And but I just think it is very, very strange that this thing it does. The more you start to look at it, the more you wonder whether it is just a sort of an experiment to see what goes on. I mean, somebody was saying, I forget who it was, the powers that be are getting really, really scared because we're using the internet in a way that they don't want. And we're winning, blah, blah, blah. And they cited the Arab Spring as an example of how the internet and social media had been a positive example. And I thought, hang on, wasn't the Arab Spring a military coup disguised as a popular uprising? Just as in Ukraine, it's a military coup disguised as a popular uprising. Didn't they try the very same thing in Syria with that blog from the woman called Syria Girl that proclaimed how hard it was to be a lesbian under Assad? And it transpired that it was a Scottish, well, it was a guy called Tom McMaster who was living in Scotland but was a CIA agent who was pretending to be a Syrian lesbian. His wife had very shifty relationships with intelligence agencies and just so happened to be a PhD in Syrian economy. And there's been numerous, basically, things like that. Coney 2012, again, it had intelligence agencies written all over it. The one at the minute is this ISIS thing that's going all over the place. I mean, for crying out loud, does anyone really fell for ISIS? It is just the very same people. They've just altered their flag very slightly. Right. Like, somebody was on Sky News the other morning when they're doing the newspapers and stuff like that, and they cut this guy didn't realise what he was saying, okay, and they basically redirected the line of questioning very, very quickly. But he was like, oh, this ISIS. I'll tell you one thing that's strange about this ISIS. Who does their PR? Because 2 weeks ago I'd never heard of them. And now they're everywhere. They've got T-shirts that you can buy, and no, seriously, they've got and websites, and they're in every newspaper, and they've got these brilliantly produced videos. Isn't it all a bit suspicious? You couldn't buy PR like that for a phone. And I was like, come on, you're nearly there. Join the dots, mate. Come on, figure it out. He didn't, but I don't think he wanted to. But he's absolutely right. There's no way that these things can happen. We've sold this myth that basically the internet is a way for viral explosions, and occasionally it can happen, but 9 times out of 10 the viral explosion that you've seen has got a large company behind it, and B, it's a marketing campaign. Examples of this, the Arctic Monkeys was the quintessential. Oh yes, no, everyone found them on the internet, on MySpace. That's odd, because every single DJ in the country got the same single off them at the exact same time and started playing it at the exact same time. So you're telling me that it spread exactly simultaneously, to every single node of the media? It's nonsense. And then you find out that, say, some of their family are connected to record companies, and that the bandwidth on their website was so ludicrous to support all these people going to it that it was like, well, that's very unusual for such a pokey little band from Sheffield to have such a thing. But again, this is not new. Again, you sold it time and time again. There's another thing that again irritates me about Facebook: the amount of fake stories that go around, and the amount of articles that are basically supposition and fitting the facts around what they want to prove, that are just bandied around as fact. This is a fact, this is a fact, this is a fact. They range from, there was one that's going around, EastEnders, which is a very popular soap in England, was going to be cancelled, and it was sent around on what looked to be a BBC News footage headline. And only when you went on it, basically, you realised that, I didn't go on it because I don't care, but when you went on it, you realised that it was from a spoof newspaper or whatever, and some people still didn't, because I heard people talking about it and arguing about it at work, basically. So there's that sort of degree. But then also, you get the sort of basically opinion pieces, and they can be about anything, really. I mean, I saw one today. They're usually racist in some sort of degree, or basically to subtly imply that, yeah, no, you're probably right, we probably should be in Iraq and all these other places in Afghanistan and blah, 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 because they can't be trusted, can they? This sort of story. But the problem is that basically this is the principle of marketing, and it's the principle of teaching. The human brain is receptive to repetition. If you repeat something or you hear something 3 to 5 times. Apparently, you're 75% more or thereabouts to believe that this is true, regardless of where it's come from and whether that particular source has been proven to be a liar in the past. And this is basically how politicians can get away with it. It is a bizarre thing also, basically. You're hardwired to believe authority or people in positions of authority because, you know, logic dictates that this person is in a position of authority because he knows what he's talking about. That's how he's managed to climb up this ziggurat and get to the top, because he clearly knows more than everybody beneath him. That's how society works. Society is not mad. It works. It doesn't. But this is the problem. And this is how news media works as well. I mean, it used to be basically the very authoritarian person, what's the American geezer?
Which one?
Yes. Here.
Walter Cronkite.
Thank you. Yeah, very, very stoic, very, sort of. And now, obviously, we've got the women with legs in front of desks and stuff like that.
Right.
So, obviously, they had legs before, but we couldn't see them. Because I think now, to a degree, the news is trying to, again, in that sort of sales thing, like, all right, mate, you're all right. Have you seen the news today? Bloody hell. Like, it's all foreigners. That's what's wrong with this country. Foreigners. This is a shifting of patterns. It's still got the authority, but basically it's also depending on the channel and stuff like that. Fox doesn't tend to do that, except they've got that strange guy with the white hair whose name escapes me again. He looks like a frog. What's his name?
I haven't watched it so long. I miss Frogman.
Me either.
Oh, he cries and gets very patriotic.
Oh, you're talking about Glenn Beck?
That's him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. Bless him. But again, it's an act. It's all an act. It's terribly. But going back to what what we were saying about this possibly being like operant conditioning. I mean, some elements of Facebook certainly are operant conditioning, and they're designed like that. We talked about this before, I think. Farmville, the game Farmville, and numerous of the games like that. This isn't me. This is the person that designed the game. The person that designed the game said, oh, the point of this game isn't for fun. The point of this game is to keep the player in the game for as long as possible. And someone explained to me that basically in Farmville and various other games like that, if you leave, your crops die or something like that. Basically, you've got to stay in. You've got to try and encourage other people to do that. And you've got to do a lot of like mind-numbing, boring tasks that there's no real point to them other than basically, again, to keep you in the game. I mean, you see this in actual sort of real computer games. Basically, it's easy at the start, and then it gets higher and higher. Your boss levels go up and stuff like that. But this is a way of getting people into it. But then you can, as I say, do this thing where I think World of Warcraft does similar sorts of things. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do. Yeah. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff that you have to do to sort of maintain your character or whatever and stuff like that. So, again, the game isn't there to entertain you. The game's there to train you to stay in the game for whatever reason. And again, that does happen basically. So, very, very bizarre. Why would they want to keep you there? But again, that's what Facebook does. It keeps you there. I've said this on other programs, but the principle of the Quay document, the Quay manual, was a torture and enhanced interrogation manual that the CIA produced to be used in places like Nicaragua and South America, various places where they were installing dictatorships or whatever. And a lot of it's sort of torture using electricity, torture, waterboarding, that sort of thing, breaking people's fingers. I mean, the more extreme parts of it, well, that's a different document. That's human resources exploitation that basically teaches you take somebody out in the middle of the street and cut their head off in front of everybody else and don't explain it, and let them know that basically it's an extreme example of what Orson Welles would do: fire somebody on the first day just to let them know what's boss. But I don't think they got it from Orson Welles. They got it from the work of Ewan Cameron and William Sargent, who were two English. William Cameron was Scottish, but he was working in Canada. William Sargent was working at St Thomas's Hospital in London. And they were wiping people's memories using electroshock, mescaline, barbiturate-induced comas, and then a method called psychic driving, which is basically like putting headphones on people's heads and making them listen to looped messages once you'd already wiped their mind and turned them into a complete vegetable, basically. Now, the principle that came out of the Cubot document that was directly from Cameron and Sargent's work was that the way to induce a catatonic or a complete takeover of personality is to isolate and overstimulate. And so this is why people are put in isolation cells, on their own. I forget what it's called, segregation, but they have the light on for 24 hours a day, so they lose their bearings, and very possibly they'll have like white noise. Certainly in Guantanamo Bay and stuff like that, they'll have white noise or an irritating looped sound, like 7 seconds of a song, so it goes da 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 da. So it jives with you, and basically just that drives you insane. Now, that's exactly what Facebook does. You're isolated because you're on your own, because it's solo pursuit. You're there, you're behind a screen, so you're even more isolated. There's absolutely no human contact at all. There's no emotional interaction, despite the fact that it presents itself as that. And you're overstimulated because you're following this thread, you're getting into an argument. Also, you've got all these screens, bang, 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 advertising. Do you like this page? Ooh, this is a good page for you. And so you are isolated and overstimulated. This is a principle of mind control, principally interrogation-based mind control. And I just, again, find that very, very suspicious that this, this social interaction media. I mean, one of the things, social media makes you less social. Okay, studies have shown that it breeds isolation, loneliness, and narcissism. Okay, it actually makes you feel bad, because you know why, right? I'm going to let you in on a secret here, okay? Everyone lies on Facebook, right? Nobody says, oh, Christ, I made a right. Like, everything that you put on there, your best photo and stuff, you've never seen a girl put up a photo. Look at all these 17 photos, and not one of them did I look attractive on. Never, right? Okay, you cater it. Everyone's life looks far more exciting than yours on Facebook. Yeah. And so, it breeds that discontent. Again, so what do? You go and buy aspirational things so that you can show off. Someone made what it is akin to being at a strip club. Somebody pointed out the other day that being in a strip club, throwing lots and lots of money, making it rain, you're not doing that for the girls. You're doing that to show off to other men, which is strangely homoerotic when you think about it. But let's not get sidetracked. That is the point. You're showing off to people and stuff like that. So people lie. So what do? You start to lie yourself. You start to cater it. You perhaps go, I've done this. I'm not going to put this joke. Some jokes popped into my head. I go, how brilliant. Oh, actually, you know what? Some people might be a bit offended by that. I'm not going to risk it. Sod it. Okay, I'm taking it off. That's a very slim example. Some people might go, oh no, yeah, I like that band too. Yeah, no, oh no, I like that film. Oh no, he's terrible, isn't he? Oh no, I hate that person. Or whatever. You subtly start to cater your responses to questions, the things that you post, the pictures that you put up on there, and sooner or later, your friends are going up and up and up, and you've got 1,000 friends, and you think to yourself, basically, you know what that's subtly telling you? It's telling you that the Facebook version of you, the virtual edited highlights of you, is much more popular and much more well-liked than the real you, because it's certainly got more friends than you. You haven't got 1,000 friends, you've got 5 friends. And I'm not going to go at you, that's a bloody good amount to have. It's physically impossible to have 1,000 friends that you truly interact with. Okay, and again, it's not real interaction. So that's another thing, that basically this version of me is more popular than me. Crikey, you might not consciously think this, but your brain knows, trust me. So what you're going to do, you're going to start altering yourself to be part of the crowd. You're going to alter yourself to be part of the popular set. You want to be in with the 90210 crowd, or God knows whatever it is now. It's ridiculous, basically, but it is very, very subtle in the ways that it actually manipulates people, I think.
Now, Neil, you mentioned earlier about the Facebook experiment with the government, with the Department of Defense, creating apathy, maybe checking apathy to see what kind of reaction that they can get from people that are on Facebook, possibly, right? But you know what? As you were mentioning that earlier, I was thinking to myself, and I took a note, isn't that really the same thing that's going on with Edward Snowden? I mean, Snowden's leaking these documents, and whereas most people should be, okay, well, this is out of control,
Hmm.
Just a lot of silence from the mass of the population. It's just apathetic. They don't care.
Well, it's conditioning, isn't it? It's the manufacture of consent, which is something we talked about last time. If the news media is not reacting with horror, then perhaps it's not right for me to act with horror. You
Yeah.
know, I haven't seen anyone else jumping up and down. I mean, I think this is outrageous, but perhaps, just perhaps, I'm in the minority. Perhaps I'm even wrong. So you know what? I'm not going to cause too much of a fuss. But again, it's the frog in a pot syndrome, isn't it? Basically, it's creep, 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 creep. The next step is that basically you're going to get people saying, "Oh no, I'd love it if you could do that," and blah blah blah. If people were watching my every move and monitoring this and blah blah blah. I mean, they are. This is. I think we said this before. Nothing on the Edward Snowden sort of revelation. I'd not heard it before. Again, but then again, you could argue that it's like another Phoenix style shock test. You know, I forget. Oh, I've gone simple. I forget what Tavistock called it, but they used shock troops to do a future shock. Thank you. Future shock. That's what they called it. So it sounds to me like again like a sort of future shock thing. Like, you know, this is horrific. Bloody hell, God! And you're powerless to do anything about it because basically you said that the media is ominous with its silence. So I think that's a very very good point. I think very similar to Edward Snowden is probably why this sort of thing happens.
Even the Phoenix shock approach, you know, you mentioned that earlier before, and I just pieced it together when you mentioned it. I a little embarrassed that I didn't connect it earlier, but even when they show pictures of used to be Al Qaeda, now it's ISIS with beheadings and decapitations,
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
it's a
wasn't it
formula.
proven that? Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, certainly there's several of those beheadings that are very very suspicious. I think I don't know if I'm correct here, but I believe I think it might be Nick Berg, but I'm probably wrong. Certainly one of them, there was a lot of speculation as to, well, how on earth did he get? Because he was there 1 second, and then all of a sudden he's being beheaded by apparently Al Qaeda, which we know to be a construct of the CIA anyway. So yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, again, there's a thing that's going on in England at the minute, like constantly stories, usually in the Daily Mail and stuff like that, about this woman called Samantha Lewthwaite or something, and she was the wife of one of the supposed 7/7 bombers. And you only need to go and read Nick Colstrom's work on 7/7 or watch any of the sort of like documentaries to see that those guys were not responsible for the bombings. It's very, very clear. Now, she was the wife of one of the guys. I forget particularly which one, but she's just been demonized in the press with wild speculation ever since to let you know that this stuff keeps going on. And again, she's off leading troops and stuff like that, and training people in Africa, and she's turned into like some sort of Che Guevara type militant figure apparently, and it's like, that's bullshit, isn't it? It's just, there's not a shred of evidence. It's just trust us on this. This woman, she's doing this. She's horrible, which proves that terrorists were, and also it proves that this thing ages ago, which a lot of people are starting to get suspicious. Well, that was terrorists as well, wasn't it? Like, join the dots, people. Come on, use your brain. Again, yeah, nonsense, absolute nonsense. I mean, the clever thing about like making these false villains is you can never catch them. That's why there was no body for Osama bin Laden, and that's why it took so long to catch him. Because he was dead, right? It is being an agent of Goldstein, just like from 1984. That basically in there they had the character, the terrorist against the state, was called Goldstein, and anybody that was found to be, doing anything wrong, that was their execution or punishment was justified by suggesting they were an agent of Goldstein. You're a member of Al Qaeda, you're a member of blah 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 blah. Same thing. If the person doesn't exist, you're never going to find them, so you can continually look for them. It's quite clever, really. Basically, like create these false things and present it through a medium that people trust for whatever reason. Do it perhaps in such a way that people are shocked and frightened so that they don't actually analyze it too much. And then move it onto the next stage. Like, look, we've accepted that this is a fact. What are we going to do about it? Hang on, I'm not absolutely sure that it was Al Qaeda that did 9/11. Tough luck, Neil. We're already into stage 2, so we're gonna have to like cope with this now. We're talking about the invasion, blah blah blah. This is again what happens. So falsehoods get absorbed into the cultural lexicon as facts, and then they can be used basically, and everything else gets memory hold again, to use a 1984 analogy.
So, Neil, why is it, though, to get your opinion on this, do most people have difficulty piecing the obvious together. So if we use Osama bin Laden as an example, it's very clear that it was fabricated. After a certain point,
Yep.
after 9/11, it just became really almost a circus, a comedy of presentations where,
Yeah.
I mean, they had pictures where he shows up 5 years later and he's darkening his beard. He's,
Yeah.
right. He got younger.
It's
He got younger
ridiculous.
as
Yeah.
time went on. But what is it that keeps people from piecing it together and saying, "Okay, this is total bullshit. I get it.
Yeah.
I was duped." You know,
I think
they
it
don't
goes
get it.
back.
They just keep rolling along.
It goes back to what we were saying before. I think people are more comfortable in group think. If someone had a creative thought or original thought about something, I think it's just more comfortable to go with what the next guy thinks happened, and people just repeat what the next guy said, and it goes back to just being part of the collective.
Absolutely, I think that's certainly true. I think a lot of people don't want to actually just admit and burst their sort of comfort zone and stuff. A lot of people just aren't interested in it because they've insulated themselves with products and stuff, and all they're worried about is paying the mortgage, blah, 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 do this, buy this product, get a new car, got to get to work tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. You developed a thing called second nature, which is basically not really connected with your sort of organic self, and so you're too busy with that sort of thing. Some people, it just terrifies them, so they have this cognitive dissonance, which is again like a sort of Stockholm syndrome, where it's very akin to an abusive relationship. Oh no, but it, they're obviously doing this for some reason. Like, it's probably my fault. If I had nothing to hide, I wouldn't have any problem with them looking through my emails, and that's nonsense as well. If you've got nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid. Fine, I very much look forward to the Polaroids of your wife's naked body, is what I always say. If you've got nothing to hide, why have you got curtains?
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference between I've got nothing to hide and wanting a bit of privacy, and that's
Might as well live in a glass house.
Exactly, it's a semantic game that people play, and it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think a lot of it, and the other thing, one of the things is that basically people are flattered into believing that they can't be fooled. You've got a million outlets, you've got a million news agencies, you've got a million internet sites, blah, 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 blah. I'm too smart. I've got too much information. There's no way that the government could trick me. There's no way that anyone could trick me, blah, 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 blah. You can bolster it as well with, like, the common sort of thing is, as well is like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Anyone that touts conspiracy theories is just trying to show that they know more about the world than other people, and it's a way of them heightening their security by saying, but I know really how the world is, which is a nonsense moot point argument, because basically could you not say that about somebody who immediately dismisses all conspiracy theories, because it's the same thing. But that's a very clever sort of like Freudian type argument that basically is, you can't defeat that because you can use that against absolutely everybody. Well, of course you're saying that because you don't want to burst your little bubble. So that's a nonsense. I'll give you an example of how people are flattered. This was yesterday, actually, in the Daily Mail. This is a brilliant, actually, example of how marketing and advertising can be hidden behind what is supposedly a news story as well. And the story was, is your boss a Facebook addict? Now, you started reading the story, and it was basically, bosses are getting irritated because their employees are going on Facebook during the workday. But actually, a study checked and found that your boss is more likely to be the person that's actually on Facebook for longer than the workers. And so I started reading it. And it was saying that high flyers, the successful, highly intelligent, and often men in business, like CEOs and stuff, they're the people that are more likely to use Facebook for long periods of time. I was like, again, this is nonsense. This isn't a story. I doubt that study ever took place. This is a marketing campaign to let you know that high flyers, the successful, highly intelligent people use Facebook. Doesn't that make you feel better? Yeah. Because if you use Facebook, you could be a little bit like these people.
You could be a shaker and a mover.
Yeah, it flatters people. If I use Facebook, I'll become more intelligent. Attractive people with attractive qualities use Facebook. I'm an attractive person with attractive qualities. QED, I must use Facebook. It was a brilliant piece of subtle marketing. And everybody that I showed it to went, so what? I was like, look at it again. It's like, oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. But again, this is the clever thing about most things. This is what we're talking about. Facebook is presented in one way. I actually think that it's actually more experimentation. I think it's we know that everything is on there is monitored. We know that they have the ability to remove posts, right? Okay. When Pete Steele died, we thought it would be funny to put up a picture of the spread that he did with Playgirl when he was very naked. As a respect, rest in peace. That was taken down within 30 seconds, right? Okay, because Facebook's got no sense of humour, right? But then other posts and stuff, I put a post up there talking about exactly that Facebook mirrors the QBAR document principles. That's still up there. Like, they have the power to take this down. They allow it to stay up. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. It's too big for them to monitor everything, and therefore, if we keep pumping out the information and stuff like that, this is a way to educate the masses, and I hope that's true. But I tend to worry sometimes that basically you're being led to believe that you have freedom, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It's like it's kind of like the Matrix, almost.
To me, Facebook, among being a testing ground to try to almost like a litmus test of how people are going to react to stories and everything else, I think the other big thing behind Facebook is one of the big goals that they have with that is like anything else with sports, football, baseball, TV. It's a huge time sink.
Yep.
It's a huge distraction. If you can distract people long enough to sit in front of something for hours and hours and hours, they're not going to pay attention to how they're being robbed every day, to the constant wars that are going on, and also to try to propagate groupthink, to get people to be a part of the collective. I think Facebook is a lot of different things, and I think all those are included. I think it is an experiment dabbling into mind control, and like I said before, I think basically the other things is it's a huge time sink. It distracts people and gets people thinking to be part of the collective and just not think for themselves. It's just the same thing with TV, movies. If you don't like sports, then go to Facebook. If you don't like Facebook, go watch sports. If you don't like sports, play some video games.
In fact, there's probably a Facebook page called I Hate Sports. I'm serious, it probably is. Right? And I'll tell you what, right, it's worse because everything's accessible through your smartphone now. So we've got all these zombified people like, where are you kids going? Oh, going away on holiday. It'll be so nice to be in another part of the world staring at your smartphones. But smartphones, right, okay, they're supposed to be a stress-relieving, make your life simpler. Oh, I've got access to all this, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Do they make you less stressed or do they make you more stressed? I'll put it this way. Have you developed the Phantom Ring? The Phantom Ring, oh, my phone's going off. Oh, no, it's not. That's a symptom of a serious problem. You're becoming addicted to your phone. Yeah. Like, studies have shown, these are eminent studies at Harvard and various other, I forget the exact first one, was certainly at Harvard, shows that basically, particularly iPhone users, when it's got a very distinctive ringtone or whatever, when they hear that, the synaptic and chemical response in their brain is similar to when they see a loved one. So it's not that they basically, it's not in the same way as like when people see Coca-Cola advertising for the same way. It lights up certain pleasure centers because you know that, or you've been trained by the marketing to expect this to be really, really good. So it actually physically alters your perception of taste. It's not quite like that. You are actually physically falling in love with your phone. It is the same pheromone and chemical response that happens in the first flushes of a new relationship. It's almost sexual in nature because this is I'm serious, because this is your key to a better lifestyle. Never mind that, 14 people killed themselves in the making of that thing, and one of them still we can't get him down from the net, so we've been poking
nets now.
Yeah, exactly, to stop them splashing all over the floor, which is obviously far more humane. This is the point. That's again that cognitive dissonance. Converse trainers, Nike, Gap, anything like that, you've got blood on your hands, I'm afraid, right? Okay, and people, you ever see people like animal rights protests wearing Converse trainers and stuff? You go, mate, think what you've done and stuff like that. This is slave labor that makes iPads and iPhones, and is it really that much of a thing? But this is the point. It is sold to people that doesn't enter into people's heads. All they know is that basically it is a way of telling other people, signifying to other people that you're doing well. Same way that people, Mercedes logo, for example, same way that you know that, oh, that's a men's toilet symbol. I know how to act and in response to that symbol. You see a Mercedes logo, you go, oh, well, they are obviously doing quite well for themselves. You see Rihanna with her new whatever iPhone with a diamond encrusted knuckle duster on it, or and you think, cool, well, that's obviously the in thing. That's what I've got to get, like, so that everyone will respect me in the same way that they respect Rihanna. And garbage, isn't it? I mean that's the other thing, is to say relationship with all these things is it's not real. It's parasocial. I mean that's how you would describe a relationship with a celebrity. You base your understanding on what you think you know about them, that is directed to you through the media. It can't possibly be true. Like, it can't be possibly be a full representation of that person, but you take it in and ascribe certain qualities to that person, and that is exactly the same thing that you do with Facebook. It can't all be true. It can't possibly express the wonderful, diverse thing that is you, a human being, a fabulous, interesting human being. You can't express that through Facebook, so people are having a parasocial relationship with people. This happens when you meet somebody on the internet and you go, oh, this is brilliant, I've taken all the awkwardness out of it because we're talking, we know so much about one another, and the second you meet you go, oh Christ, it's different when it's face to face, isn't it? So because again, you've been having a parasocial relationship. It might make it slightly easier because at least you've got a topic of conversation, and you know that, like, that you're actually not physically repulsed by this person, but again, it's not the same. It's not, you're not suddenly on date 5 just because you've done it on the internet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so
if they want to reduce human interaction, and a lot of the marketing really just plays to one of the oldest sins, which is vanity.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, when I say narcissism, I don't strictly mean it in the sort of like, oh, I'm so beautiful, look at my selfie sort of thing. I mean it in the psychological perspective of, you assume that the entire world revolves around you, and you start to get angry and irritated when it doesn't revolve around you, and you become incredibly selfish and self-involved, and then because you wish to achieve and win, you become very manipulative and very devious, and start to muck people around and play mind games and stuff like that. And that, this is what narcissists in the psychological sense do. They, everything's, oh, me. And one key example of that, which really winds me up, is the phishing posts that people put on Facebook. Oh, bloody men! Oh, woe is me! Oh, Christ, could life get any worse? Oh, what's up, hun? Anything problem, babes? Go on, just DM me. Go on, tell me all about it. Oh, come on. Like, what happened to just phoning your friend and going, you know what, mate, I'm a bit pissed off with this. I'm having a bit of a bad day. Can I have a chat with you about it? There's something, again, a bit sinister about that. But again, you'd be hard-pressed for anybody that's done that to actually admit, yeah, you know what, it was a bit of a cry for attention. I mean, it might be a justifiable cry for attention, but it's a bit juvenile, isn't it? Like, and it's, it's very diva-ish prima donna. I'm not suggesting that people, Facebook can be a wonderful tool, like anything, like a hammer can be a wonderful tool. But I could also break someone's kneecaps with it, right? But Facebook can make people who are bedridden, people that are very isolated. I'm in touch with friends. That's why I have Facebook, so that you can get in contact with people like yourselves or friends that I haven't seen for ages and stuff like that. Make sure they're not dead for a start, things like that. But don't let it be the be-all and end-all. Like, it's not real, for crying out loud. And again, it just falls back into this again. Oh, yeah, I'm buzzing on this. I've got all this story going off and this going off and this going off. And it's very difficult not to, because, the world's not a place that is very sort of like, that caters towards sort of like complimenting you or showing you any, even if you've worked bloody hard. Like, I mean, Christ, most people, they say they're at work all day, and it's a joyless, thankless, horrible world. And not only that, but again, you combine this with the sort of aspirational life of celebrities. You've seen Kim Kardashian being given awards just for like I don't know, oh, well done, Kim, you managed to not fall over, keep breathing in and out all bloody day without nice one, sweetheart. Like, Can nobody see the massive scars on her arse as well? Like every single photograph that they show of her, they're huge crescent-shaped, ugly scars, and it's like again, it's an emperor's new clothes sort of thing. Because because like I'm trying to be her.
But, you know, question for you though: activism and causes on Facebook. This is another thing that drives me crazy, right? We have the global I Care Day about something, right? And people click and like and join and everything else, but at the end of the day, what's really happening is nothing.
Well, I don't need to actually, go to the office or actually make a donation. I've made it perfectly clear by clicking that page on Facebook what sort of person I am. I'm the sort of person that likes charities. I mean, I don't do anything, right, okay, with it, obviously, but I'm the sort of person that might do that sort of thing. I'm a good guy. Look at me promoting all these causes. It's bullshit. It's the same way as celebrities doing it. I think we talked about this last week. When a celebrity promotes a charity and makes a huge charitable donation, it means that they don't have to pay tax on that money. It is a trick. It's not a trick. It's perfectly legal, but it's a way of not paying as much tax as everybody else. Okay, it's just a loophole. In the same way as writing off expenses and stuff like that. 95% of all charitable intake can go towards administrative costs. So you sign all that off anyway, so that's yours, and then you don't pay tax on whatever it makes or whatever you donate. So again, it's a big cost. It can't. But yeah, slacktivism, posting up. Again, it's the narcissistic element of it. I can't really be asked to get off my arse and actually go down there and do anything for this particular charity. But by doing this, I'm making people aware of it. Are you telling me people didn't know about the Cancer Trust or whatever? These things are like, and it's quite arrogant, really. It's like, are you doing anything about this charity? No, I'm not, but neither are you. So, and if I was doing something about it, I'd be doing it for the point of the charity. I wouldn't be doing it to score points so that people would go, he's a very benevolent person, that Neil. He's just the sort of person that would give to charity. Like when a celebrity dies, there's two sorts of responses. One is the immediate hilarious jokes, and the other is the so sad, such a tragedy, such a young mother. And again, you don't know these people. It's to present an image of yourself, how you would like to be thought of by other people. And again, this is what social media does. It provides a forum for you to pretend, which is fine. That's absolutely fine, But people don't think that it's that. People think that it's real, and they don't make. Again, it's that cognitive dissonance of like, well, this is clearly nonsense, but it's on here, so it's not nonsense and stuff like that. So yeah, it's insidious, really.
Well, Neil, we're pushing about an hour here. This has been another fabulous discussion, and what I'd love to do is to have you come back again.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love these conversations. It's very informative. We talk about stuff that that I think people need to hear that you're not going to hear in. You're certainly not going to hear it in the mainstream media.
No, that is true. Well, no, I'd love to come back. I very much enjoy it, and I'm very flattered to be asked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I am going to plug your website, which is neilsandersmindcontrol.com. And did you want me to plug your hypnosis site too? I can.
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah. NottinghamHypnosis.com.
Yep. Yeah. You certainly can't hurt.
Absolutely. And your book, Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, Volumes 1 and 2, which can be found and ordered on Neil's website, neilsandersmindcontrol.com.
And also, if people don't like having real things and want a Kindle copy, you can get those on Amazon as well.
It's on Amazon too?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
All right, great.
It's not really on Amazon. It's sold through me on Amazon, so,
Okay. All right. Well, Neil, I know it's getting late there for you, and again, I really, really appreciate you coming on, and please come back.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. And that concludes our interview with Neil Sanders, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as we did. Neil's website is neilsandersmindcontrol.com, and from Neil's website you can order his book, Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, Volumes 1 and 2. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting our blog, The Sage of Quay. Also, if you are so inclined, please head over to laboroflovemusic.com, where you can listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
I've gotta be me, and you need to be said you